Women Making Waves.
So, Susie, hockey at school. Do you know what? When I joined my secondary school, I'd never done any hockey. And I actually really liked it at first, and I was quite good at it. So I went down to join the hockey team after school, and the teacher didn't turn up. And I went back the next week, again, quite keen. Teacher didn't turn up.
Oh, wow.
So at that point, I lost interest. And then we were doing it at school. And it was September, October. It was very cold. We all had to go outside. And I think I got knocked on the ankle by an aggressive player. And that was the end of my hockey career.
Oh, gosh, that's so sad, Linda. I mean,
it is. There should be sad music playing in the background,
it
Susie.
is like two attempts to have a go, no teachers. And then when you do actually get to play, you get an injury.
At school, yeah. Well, it wasn't exactly an injury.
Oh,
but
you made it sound like
if you'd asked me at the time, I had a sore ankle. You know, I had a bit of a bruise on my ankle. And I think that's not unusual, really, for hockey players, to be fair.
No, but did you get the sympathy?
I thought maybe netball would be better. No, none whatsoever. None whatsoever, because you know what it was like at school.
Yeah.
And then I just went off the whole idea. What about you? Did you have any experience of playing hockey?
I didn't know. I really didn't have the opportunity to play hockey. I played a bit of netball and I loved rounders. I was in a state school in Surrey, and the back of the school had a very small playing field, and that's where I learnt to play rounders, because that's all you could play. And literally our school backed onto the Crystal Palace Football Club, and I was probably more excited about that than I was actually, the players than I was actually playing. But I really love rounders, but I wish I'd pushed myself to play more, because I love the whole art of throwing a ball, and that really got me. But I never really took up the opportunity after that. And it's interesting, isn't it, about women's sport and how far we get. I mean, I don't play a lot of team sport. I mean, did you ever play team sport after hockey?
No. I think I went off the whole idea. I didn't like the changing room, Susie. I know. Right. I didn't like the changing room. I didn't like getting changed. We were all meant to go into the showers afterwards. That was a bit of a horrific experience. Nobody actually did that. The teachers would come in and check and go, "Why are you not wet? You know, your hair's not damp." I don't understand. Oh, yeah. We'd all be smelling afterwards. I mean, it was just pretty miserable. But some girls were great at it. Yeah. And they were the ones that went on into the teams, you see.
They did. That's right.
And after my very bad experience of turning up 2 weeks running at 12-year-old.
That's so sad that you were there.
No teacher in sight. Yeah,
that's really sad. I think sport is a very interesting path for girls in school, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm just thinking
the
hockey world had no loss whatsoever that I didn't have anything to do with it.
But I think they had a loss with me in rounders, because I think I was all right.
Yeah,
I don't
British
know if I was all right.
Rounders team.
British Rounders team. Is there a British Rounders team in the Olympics?
No.
There isn't.
No.
Well, you see, if I'd have been in it, there might have been. You see, I might have been. I could have done it. I could have been an Olympian Rounders player.
Well, we're going to be joined today later on by Tess Howard, MBE, who's a very well-known hockey player. She has played for Cambridge City, the England Women's 22 Commonwealth Games gold medal squad. And she's got right into talking about sportswear for women. Really, really interesting. But you know what? I have to say that after my experience of hockey and netball, I could have done with some CBT. So our other guest would have come in very, very handy for me if she had visited my 12-year-old self.
That's quite true, actually. Yes, that's right. Dr. Lee David, GP and therapist. And she is the brains behind 10 Minute CBT, making mental health very easy and doable. And that's what we're really trying to get at the moment, aren't we? Get across mental health and how not so strong or strong you can be when you play any sports or any games, and you're going to have your downs and you're going to have your ups, or just or have a go. But for you at 12, you could have done them with a bit of pep talk, because
she needed to come into the changing room and get in those showers.
Yes, exactly.
You're listening to Women Making Waves radio show and podcast, brought to you by Suzie Thorpe and Linda Ness. This show is all about women doing extraordinary things.
Our guest today is Dr. Lee David, who is a GP, therapist and founder of 10-Minute CBT, otherwise known as Cognitive Behavioural Therapy, a recently produced book enabling mental health support quick and practical for busy lives. Lee is a presenter, author, course director, passionate about giving GPs and young people simple tools to boost well-being. Whether on air or in print, she's all about sharing ways to tackle stress and thrive. Welcome, Lee.
Thank you very much.
So the emphasis really, Lee, is on 10 minutes. It's like trying to make it as normal as possible, mental health and how to help yourself. Is that correct?
Yes, that's exactly right. So, as you said, my background is a GP, and as you probably know, GPs typically have had 10-minute consultation. So I come from the need to get things done, be effective, be professional, but we've got a time limit, and that's always been my background. So when I trained in CBT, I became really interested in what are these bite-sized things that can actually make a difference, lift people's mood, improve quality of life, and what is realistic in 10 minutes, because most people are busy, they've got stresses, they've got life pressures, they've got things to do, and so actually they might struggle to commit to anything that takes a long time. So I just wanted to make it as accessible as possible, especially for teens whose focus and attention, we really need to engage them quickly with things that make a difference.
Yes, I'm really interested in that, Lee, actually, the fact that some of your books are focusing on teenagers, because it feels to me, and I'm having conversations with lots of my friends as well, we've now got children in their 20s, but when they were in their teens, quite a high proportion of them went through a phase where they were really struggling with their mental health. It was something that we didn't seem to see so much of when we were younger. Would you agree with that? And why do you think it is that teenagers today are all really struggling with anxiety and stress?
I think there's a lot of factors involved. I think COVID was a big trigger for a lot of young people. And I also think social media has also got a really big role to play, which is why one of our books focuses on body image, because there's a huge impact about social comparisons. Do I look okay? Do I look as good as those people who are actually probably photoshopped on social media? And can I live up to not only with appearance, but also with my personality? How do I have to be? There's so many different things to compare ourselves to. And the problem is with comparisons is there's always a way to fall short compared to people on social media.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And when kids are at school, there's that pressure as well to be part of the in crowd. Everyone's looking at everybody else. But you're on show 24 hours a day with social media. It's not like you can come away from school, get into your house, and it just stops. I think nowadays, it's just constant. There is no escaping. They've all got the phones in their hands permanently. It can't be good for them, really.
No, and I think it's exactly that, needing some respite from the pressure. And so a lot of what we focus on is doing things that bring purpose and meaning. So doing 10 minutes of dancing, or going out for a walk with your friend, doing something face to face, doing something that actually gives you a sense of purpose and meaning is incredibly powerful. And it really doesn't have to be a lot, because if you're just caught up, you get caught up in your head. You know, people might be scrolling, they're doom scrolling and looking at all the stressful, anxiety triggering, this is happening, this is going on in the world, this is really awful. People get very caught up in that. And so actually just breaking out of that by going and doing something else just reminds you that actually there are still trees out there, there's still some sun in the sky, there's still your friend smiling at you. And all those things can just make a difference to break you out of that spiral of negativity.
Yeah, I mean, mental health at the moment is very much in the public eye for all the right reasons, sadly, very, very sad reasons. Young teenagers committing suicide because they haven't got the help because of social media, and their parents now trying to struggle to help move forward. I mean, for me, I still find mental health a quagmire because people don't want to talk about it. There is still a stigma. Do you agree with that, or do you think we are moving forward?
I think there is a stigma. I do think we are moving forward in that the fact that there's this increased discussion about mental health in young people is probably because it may well be in past generations it just wasn't talked about. So in some ways, the fact that it is being talked about might be a sign that it's starting to come to the forefront. But obviously we really need that support. I'm very aware that a lot of young people may struggle to access some of the mental health services for young people are very, very stretched. They're working really hard, but there are limits, and I think there's a big mismatch between the need and some of the services that are available at the moment. And so parents are struggling, they're feeling stressed. How do I support my child through these really difficult times? And so what we don't want to do is kind of terrify people into thinking this is so bad, it's catastrophic. And I think really it's about going upstream and thinking, okay, can we start having these conversations early? I've got 2 teenagers myself, and one of them's doing her GCSEs at the moment, and it's really tough. As a parent, you're watching them tired, stressed out, working hard, and you just want to take it away from them. But obviously you can't. You have to just be a supporter. And so it comes back to trying to be a space that they are safe to express themselves. It's not trying to fix everything for them. I think that's really key, is allowing them some space to feel what they feel without panicking that this is really bad, they shouldn't feel anxious. Actually, anxiety and excitement, they're really close together. So it may be that it means being anxious might mean something amazing's happening. Maybe it means that they're moving their life into an area where there's a bit of uncertainty, and that actually might be very positive. So we're not trying to be free of difficult emotions. What we're trying to do is navigate the complex life that we've got and try and make choices that move life in a positive direction.
Lee, do your kids read your books as well, or do they, just because mum's written them, roll their eyes and not see any value in them?
Well, I've managed to persuade them to do a bit, but they dip in and out, and I think that is actually how they're designed to be used. So do they sit down and read them? I'd love to say yes, they read them from cover to cover. I think unfortunately they definitely don't, but they do dip in, and they sometimes come and say, do you know what, that little section there, that really helped me. I don't think they're designed to be used as this textbook, more than picking out bits and focusing, that seems interesting, what can we do with that? And then maybe the way I think it works really well is also to talk to somebody, a trusted adult or somebody, a friend, but somebody who gets some perspective so that you can talk through the bits and actually work out, how can I use this for me? What does this mean for me? What can I do that will make a difference? Because really we want to be empowering young people to know how to manage these difficult situations and not feeling, give them that sense of purpose and a sense of control, and they have to be able to understand what can they control and what they can't.
Mm-hmm. I mean, at what point as a GP and all the other hats on as the therapist, at what point did you feel that you needed to start these books, these 10-minute therapy books? What triggered that moment for you?
Well, I probably need to go kind of back to the beginning a little bit, which is I was a junior GP in training, and then I had the opportunity to train in something else. And I've always been really interested in people. I'm quite nosy. I'm interested in how people work and what happens what's going on under the surface. So I became very interested in training in the cognitive behavioural approach, and I did some additional training in that, and it just made such a difference. I became a therapist, but I also improved how I could work as a GP. I noticed that there were these differences, that I was able to support people in psychological ways that I hadn't been able to before. So I just became really interested in trying to distill that into some training. And I started out by doing training for GPs, and I wrote some books and did some training courses for GPs. And then that just kind of carried on. And then having teenage children myself and working with a colleague who has a real interest in teenage mental health, we then developed this interest in writing bite-sized books. I really like practical manuals that don't waffle, that don't have too much text in them. I like getting down to the nitty-gritty of what are we actually talking about and making it really easy to understand and make it accessible. And so hopefully that does work for teens, because they're an audience, they're not very forgiving if you're just rambling and not getting to the point. So you really need to focus on what you want to say and say it quite quickly. So it was just a really exciting project.
I might be a little bit out of touch now, but I think in the past medical doctors had a bit of a reputation for not necessarily necessarily really believing in anything alternative. You know, they would push maybe tranquilizers or something on people, and I guess I am thinking some decades ago now. But have you had any negative reaction to what you do from maybe older GPs?
Definitely. I think one of the biggest pressures for GPs, if you're trying to train them to use the skills, is that they're really busy, they're very stretched, and many are sort of on the brink of burnout and working super hard and really care about their patients. And so if you're saying to them, you've got to do more, you've now got to train as a mini therapist, for some that can feel quite threatening because they're feeling at stretched point already. But actually my approach is very much, well, you've already got loads of amazing skills. And this is true for people in general. You have to work on the basis that people actually have loads of capability, and all you're doing is building on what people are already doing and just finding some structures that help them work out how to choose what to do next. That's the most helpful step. But the other thing is that CBT is now very evidence-based. So it's really got a lot of evidence that supports it as being around about as effective as an antidepressant. And there's evidence that both of them together for people with more severe depression is more effective than either CBT or medication. So the combination works well too. So actually, it's got great evidence for anxiety, for depression, for lots of different problems. So it's kind of pretty standard and mainstream now.
I'm glad to hear it, actually, because drugs mute problems. They don't really resolve them, actually, do they? They just keep them at bay.
Well, there's some lovely evidence recently from the BMJ that showed that exercise was incredibly effective for depression, and it's about as effective as an antidepressant, just regular exercise. And it was dose dependent, so doing a bit more exercise had a slightly better effect. And it was just this fabulous thing where obviously when people are depressed, it's very difficult to motivate people to do exercise because depression, it's like being wrapped in almost like a straitjacket where it's very hard to do things. People feel slowed down, their thinking's slow, the motivation is down. It's very, very hard to do things. But if you can just build up in these tiny little bite-sized pieces, just start moving your body a little bit, there's really good evidence that that has a really positive effect. It's not to say it's instead of. Maybe you do it alongside. You know, obviously people need to talk to their doctor about what the best treatment is. But it's really good to know that actually movement it's not just a nice to do, it's actually a therapeutic thing that people can do. It doesn't have to cost any money. Walking was great. If you can bring yourself to do a little bit of jogging and the walking, even better. But actually just going out and walking is fantastic. And you just need a pair of shoes. You don't need any specialist equipment for that.
Lee, did you grow up in a family where medicine was a big part of your everyday life? Or did you just find your own path into this field?
No, it's really, that's been my niche. And funnily enough, you know, when I was a child, I went to a comprehensive school in North London, quite a challenging area. And I remember being told at school at one point that I would never be able to pass GCSE chemistry.
Oh my goodness.
And then I went on and got an A and an A at A level, and then obviously went on to do medicine. But I was very, very lucky that my parents, I was never pushed at all, but they always just had this quiet belief that I would be able to do, if I wanted to do something, I could do it. So I remember we came home after that parents' evening, it was my mum and I, and she just looked at me and said, yeah, I don't think we're going to listen to that, Lee.
Excellent.
Fantastic.
That is the right
That's really
response.
wonderful.
And I was like, yeah, okay, no, all right. And at first, I kind of wanted to prove them wrong. You know, I was like, I'm going to prove that I can do it. But actually, what I've learned as I've got older is trying to prove people wrong is very tiring, and actually it's quite stressful, and it's using your threat system, and it's sort of, if you don't do well, it's kind of buying into the idea, I have to prove I'm good enough, otherwise maybe I'm not. So I've tried to let go of that energy of I need to prove something and move towards, I just want to live in a way that feels good. I want to do things I care about. I want to follow my values, and if I'm interested in something, I'll put loads of energy. I'm quite sort of focused when I'm interested in things, but I want to come at it from a positive perspective, that I will do things that matter to me. I don't want to prove anyone wrong. And equally, I might make choices where I work part-time, so I'm home for the kids and I'm more able to be around for them alongside doing my professional work and trying to find a way where all of those things that matter to me, there's room for them.
And that means you've got to stop and think about what you really want your life to be like, doesn't it? Can I ask you something about your books? What methods do you use in your books to keep, especially teenagers, to keep the engagement up? Have you any strategies that you use in your books that might be slightly different?
Yeah, well, we start by actually what I just talked about, which is values. We start with something called the guide, which is think about what matters. You know, you can't motivate change without thinking about what is the point of doing. There's no point putting loads of effort into something that you don't actually care about, you know. So if you are wanting to do exams, where are you going with that? Is it health that you care about? Is it friendship? Is it connection? Is it being outdoors? Do you have a passion for sport? You know, and it's trying to engage an interest. And I think that is very, very powerful. And then we set very small behavioural steps. It's ready for action. So we try and get them behaving in different ways, because you can't easily control your emotions. You can't actually control your thoughts. Thoughts will pop into your mind, they'll come and go. Emotions might be happy, might be down. You kind of have to create the conditions. It's like going to sleep. You cannot force yourself to fall asleep, but you can create conditions where you're more likely to drop off. And the same goes for happiness. You can't force yourself to be happy, but you can create conditions where it's more likely to show up. And so that means you've got to look at what matters to you and then put things in place and do things that make it more likely that these positive emotions will come. So I'm very much behavioural, structural, but also looking at why does this matter to this particular individual? And then later we move on to think about wise mind and finding perspective, and we might use some imagery to think about how the person might motivate themselves to make wise decisions. For example, I really like to think about my wise in a tree. It's strong, it's got strong roots, it can cope, you know, through storms, it can cope when the sun is out. It's lovely when the sun comes out, but actually sometimes it will rain, sometimes it'll be snowy, sometimes a branch will break off in the wind, and that's all fine, because actually it's all about just being steady and knowing that this will pass and, you know, beautiful sunshine will come again soon. So we kind of weave all of those things in together to try and support young people to make choices that suit them as individuals.
Lee, I want to ask you a question about education and how good is it at the moment in state education and universities in implementing these mental health awareness moments? How good are we at the moment? Have we got a long way to go, or is it being talked about in school? Is it being taught and talked about?
I think it is growing in awareness, and the more I see there are more and more people focusing on well-being in educational settings. I think there's still a gap, and there are a lot of young people with significant need. I think neurodivergence is a quite a big challenge for a lot of young people within sort of educational settings, and I think there's still need and provision is often lacking for there are groups of young people who are not getting the support that they would really benefit from. Having said that, I know that schools are working really hard, and there are definitely shifts where it is more talked about, it's coming into the curriculum and there's more awareness.
And what about you? Where do you see yourself moving forward with this? More books, or are you seeing yourself moving into a different area, maybe into the education, or where do you see yourself going, Lee?
Well, I also do therapy one-to-one with people, and I love that. So I wouldn't ever want to stop having that human contact and working with individuals, because it's just really rewarding to work with people and actually see them shift through some of these challenges that they're facing. In the future, I think there could be some more books on the horizon, maybe also looking at adults. I'm very interested in the perimenopause. So, you know, that's an area where, again, CBT, there's a really good evidence base that that's actually effective at supporting women going through perimenopausal symptoms. And I think that's an area where, again, very, very busy part of life, multiple juggling, you know, responsibilities, lots going on. And then there's the added issue of managing the perimenopause as well. So that feels like an area that I'd be really interested in working in too.
Interestingly, at my work, they actually brought someone in to talk about that so that managers would understand what women were going through at certain phases of their life. And I thought that was quite forward thinking of an organisation to actually do that. And I'm glad to see that organisations are thinking about that now.
Yeah, I think it's great. And I think it's, again, a bit like in education, the conversations are starting to be had. And I think where I can add to that conversation is bringing the evidence base into the conversation, what actually works and what can people do that makes a difference. And I think that's my kind of niche, is trying to bring these evidence-based tools and make them pragmatic and realistic for people to try in their day-to-day lives.
Yeah, and I also like the way, really interesting, I've never heard this before, where you say anxiety and excitement are actually quite sort of very similar, yes, or the same thing. And I've never, ever heard that before. That was quite enlightening, because you shouldn't be ashamed of your anxiety as you're not ashamed of your excitement. And sometimes you can work it, can't you?
Exactly.
For the positives.
Exactly. And it may be, actually, if you just turn down you'll discover, oh, it was just excitement. It was just actually, I was just sort of, and actually a bit of nerves is good. It keys you up. It gets you ready to perform. Yes. And so we don't want to be like flatliners, it's trying to sort of harness that energy, but not go over the top with it either.
I think it's been great talking to you today. It's a very, very interesting subject, and mental health is a very important thing to discuss. I really like the way, Lee, that you implement mental health in 10 minutes. I know that sounds strange, but sometimes it's just like brushing your teeth or making a dinner or whatever. You want to be able to make it a regular thing. And I think you've enlightened us on that. And I wish you all the best. Well, we both wish you all the best for all the future things you do. Look out for Lee David. Lee, thank you so much indeed for coming on to Women Making Waves. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're listening to Women Making Waves radio show and podcast, brought to you by Suzie Thorpe and Linda Ness. This show is all about women doing extraordinary things.
Get ready for a treat. Today we're joined by Tess Howard, MBE, Olympic hockey star and all-round game changer. Tess doesn't just rack up medals, though she's done plenty of that. She's also shaking up the world of women's sport, making sure players actually get to choose what they wear, shorts or scores. Now, she's come back from injury with serious grit, scored in the 2022 Commonwealth Games final, and just helped Team GB reach the Paris 2024 quarterfinals. Oh, and did we mention she's got an MBE this year? Let's dive in. Welcome, Tess.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's great to have you here.
Yeah,
it really
it's
is.
Great to have you. Has it always been hockey for you, Tess?
Well, I started actually with rugby following my older brother. And then classically you get to age 11 and girls can't play rugby anymore. So then my mum swapped Sunday rugby for Sunday hockey and sort of never looked back since. But maybe if girls could have played rugby, I might still be doing that. Who knows?
Tess, tell us a little bit about your hockey career then, because you say you went from rugby to hockey. How did it all begin, and did you know anything about hockey when you started? Were you an absolute amateur, or had you played it before?
Yeah, well, I just sort of picked it up at age 11. I was lucky that we had it at school, so that was sort of my first experience of it. And I think there was something about the individual, sort of the stick skills that you could learn, the mastery of skills like that, and then also that team aspect that just really gripped me. And I had some really great coaches early on who let me be myself. I remember when I was in year 6, my primary school team, we got all the way to the national finals, and I remember my coach saying, "You are like a machine on the pitch," and that became my nickname for a good few years, was Tess the Machine Howard, because I just wouldn't stop, and I was sort of playing all the positions. And I think that just carried on into secondary school. And when I was 14, had a surprise call up to the under-16 England trials, and that sadly didn't go my way, and I was sort of left with this, you brought up on a high, and then you have quite a a harsh reality of you don't make it, but you have another go the next year, like waiting for you. So I was thinking, what do I do in this year? And that was probably the first time I took training into my own hands, and I spent as much time as I could practicing my skills, getting my fitness better. I really had to learn to love to train hard. Then the following year, joined the under-16s, played all of the games. Next year, under-18s, following year 21s, and then the following year seniors. So it was a rapid rise after that initial setback.
That's great, because it sounds like instead of the setback putting you off, some kids might have thought, oh well, that's that. I'm not as good as as I maybe hoped I was, and I'm just going to move and start watching the TV or something like that.
Yeah,
you didn't do that. You didn't do that. You didn't give up. It inspired you to do even harder, and I think that says something about you. Actually, that's obviously something about your personality. That if you get a setback, it just makes you try harder. Is that true?
Yeah, I think so. There's always been this thing inside me that wanted to either prove other people wrong or prove to myself that I could do what I set out to do. And I think the latter is probably more true. I've always been in competition with myself. Even in academics, I went to a very academic school, mostly because when I was in year 7, like joining the school, it was their first year of girls, and that's how I sort of got in, because they just would taken anyone. And then started bottom set maths, and then 6 years later ended up getting A stars in maths, things like that. Like I didn't ever want to have a ceiling put on me, and so anything that's sort of come in my path, I've just felt like I could do it. I don't understand why I couldn't do it if I put in the hard work, and that goes for academics and then also for sport, but in a way that's kind of, I wouldn't say like aggressively into overachievement. It's never been like that. It's kind of been a curiosity of, if I could I, if you know what I mean. Very much like I've always been curious and passionate, and I've just sort of let those things drive my life. I haven't really spoken about this for a while. It's quite nice.
That's great.
That's a perfect attitude. I love that attitude.
Yeah. I often wonder about the mentality of any sport. Do you find the mental well-being of players, especially hockey players and women, is that a challenge as well in a game?
Oh, hugely, and it comes at different parts of your career. When I first joined the GB women's team, I was 19. I was starry-eyed about what it meant to be an international athlete, and I got quickly moved away from my university, which was Durham, after my first year, and I moved down south to be part of the full-time team. And that move, being away from your friends in an environment which is highly competitive every day, it really can grind on you. There's been moments, I've been a full-time athlete now for 7 years, and it's been really tough. I've always tried to have the balance of academics and hockey or something else, like now working, creating inclusive sportswear, and I've always tried to balance it, because I couldn't have all my self-worth on hockey. The pinnacle of that was right before Tokyo, when I ruptured my ACL 3 months before, and that broke me, because all my self-worth was in becoming an Olympian. And so I think there are moments like that where you can fall really quickly, and I did fall really quickly, and it's another challenge. And so I guess with my mindset, I struggled for a long time because I thought I had failed, and then I just came out of my chrysalis, if you like, and was sort of felt, actually, I've got more in me. I'm not going to just lie down and take this. I'm going to make this a comeback story rather than the setback story, as they say. Mental health is something that's really a part of every day, and you have to find out what works for you and your strategies.
Yeah.
But again, you've taken a bad situation and learned from it, I guess, and come out thriving. So again, hats off to you.
Well, I can tell you I was definitely in the dark for quite a long time. So, and you can sort of look back and you can see that you did overcome it. But when you're actually in it, right before you overcome it, it is pretty dark.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. Do you find that this is something that you were able to talk to other athletes about the situation? Did you have a sort of a community where you could talk to people about this?
Yeah, well, there were a couple athletes who had been through it in our team, but they were going off to Tokyo, so it was a really tricky time to try and find people to lean on. And also I'm quite, I want to be independent, and I don't often ask for help until I really, really need it. So I think that was a bit tricky. But then once I had overcome my major struggle and I was in the last few months of my rehab, I decided to create a little support group for other ACL injured athletes in the hockey community, just people that I knew or knew of. And then it sort of started to grow. It ended up being quite a big WhatsApp group, and we'd meet every month and sort of just rant about what it's like to have an ACL injury. And that sort of gave me a lot of strength, and knowing as well that I had support every single day for, physio and gym and all of that. And other people have to do it alongside a full-time job, or, they're still at school and things like that. So
the ACL, explain that, exactly what that is again. It's a cruciate ligament.
It's the anterior cruciate ligament. It's sort of in the middle of your knee, and it's the one that you use to change direction. So if you change direction too quickly, or, you have a bad fall or something like that, you can rupture it and then you can't run. And it's normally a 12-month injury. So
gosh, that's tough. That's very tough.
It is tough. It's quite common in football.
Yeah.
And they normally say we have one in international hockey every 4 to 6 years. You normally have one.
Wow.
So when it happens to you, you're like, oh, why was that the odd number?
Yeah.
Awful.
But yeah, like you say, it all makes you stronger. I certainly wouldn't be where I am today if I hadn't had it. So that's quite powerful.
And you've played for East Grinstead, Durham University, as you mentioned, and Cambridge City, as well as the England women's team. Do you find that there's a lot of really great camaraderie within these teams, or does that change when it's a national team because you're only playing together once in a blue moon? Does it change per team? Are some nicer than others, I guess I'm asking?
Well, my first experience of that club team was with Cambridge City. They were my junior side. I was sort of 15, 16 when I joined the first team, and it was hilarious because there were so many different nicknames of different people. Someone called Pants, someone called Monkey, Stan, all of these different nicknames. And I was just sort of fresh-eyed and told to run up front and score as many goals as I could, and I did. And they just sort of really bound around me, and I think that's that and my school teams. It was just, there was so much love for the group and the girls, and I really latched onto that. But because at international level, even as a junior, I was moving groups quite quickly. It was quite hard to maintain strong group camaraderie until I joined the under 18s. And I met our coach, who was called Sarah Kelleher, and she revolutionised the way I looked at teams and hockey, to be honest. She just saw everything differently. We built our values based on the love of the game. We built this pyramid, and every session we would build a new value into it, which was either creativity or curiosity or passion or playing fast and things like that, and just sort of really brought to life that you could be really creative in hockey and the way you approach teams, and there's a whole other layers and philosophies and things like that you could, and I sort of jumped straight into that. I loved all of that. So now I try and bring that to the senior team, but we train every day together. Basically, we're a full-time program, so we are able to get that camaraderie, and this year we've got such a lovely group of players, and sort of a much younger group that we're all sort of very similar in the way that we approach the game and everything. We want everything to be enjoyable, and we want to work hard at the same time. So it definitely changes across groups, but the thing that I felt at Cambridge City, I still try and replicate that sort of playfulness, definitely.
Now, what you've just spoke about the training, that's something that us as audience and spectators, we just couldn't imagine. It's a very interesting the way that your coach gave you a sort of an opening into a new level of training and thinking outside the box. This happens all the time, but listening to you sounded like it really ignited something for you and your colleagues.
Yeah, well, I often think back to that group of 20, under 18 girls who were able to experience that, because I mean, for me it was formative, not only as a player but as a person. And I think that was really special. What Sarah was trying to do was help us in a really difficult time in your teenage years, you know, going into A-levels as well. There's so much pressure. What does your international experience want to be? What kind of group do we want to be? We ended up winning a bronze medal at the Europeans that summer, and it was just a great culmination of, you can have an element of playfulness and you can play hard, and you know, you can enjoy each other's company, which I think have to be really strong tenets in any successful team.
Yeah, absolutely. I wondered what these coaches got up to rather than standing at the side just shouting at you. You know, I did wonder what went on, so that's really, really interesting to hear.
Oh, well, more coaches than some coaches do differently, but that's certainly what I loved at under 18 level.
Tell us about this business of wearing shorts and the campaign that you had. I had no idea that hockey players weren't allowed to wear shorts. What's that about?
Well, I'm right there with you. What is it about? I've been asking myself that question for a very long time. Well, the rules stated that you'll have to look uniform, and the tradition dictated that you wore skirts. So the history of hockey uniforms is long dresses, which are completely ridiculous, through to sort of pinafores, and then into skirts, and then the least worst, best case scenario of skirts. And we trained in shorts every day as an international team. It just didn't make sense to me. I was so uncomfortable wearing the skirt, but I sort of, you know, it is what brought up with. So until you reach that level of consciousness where you're like, I can make my own decision about what I feel comfortable in, you will just do what everybody else does and accept it as the norm. But because we were wearing shorts every day, and then we had this really, really poor kit designed that was like a compression skirt and a compression tank top, and none of us wanted to wear it. We were all stretching it over the backs of the chairs before the games, things like that, like trying to make it a little bit bigger because of the material. I just had enough. And at the same time, I was doing my dissertation for my geography degree in the impact of school sport uniform on girls' participation in sport, because I was curious. I didn't feel like I knew enough about kit to be able to make a stand in hockey until I could prove, you know, that there was some issue with having these strict gendered uniforms. And so lo and behold became the campaign to have choice, essentially. So my dissertation found that 70% of women had seen girls drop out of sport because of sports kit and body image concerns, and that 100% wanted choice when they're at school, and 60% wanted shorts. And so these sort of numbers were really good things to state. But what stuck with me most was the incredibly honest, vulnerable accounts that these women had given me about the issues that they faced at school, and what sports kit did to their self-confidence, their body image, to their love of sport, and fading away at teenage years. And the alarming thing was, it was still happening today. This wasn't a new phenomenon. So I felt it really deeply. I felt my own discomfort really deeply, and I just thought, you know, screw the patriarchy, I'm done with it. And my title of my dissertation was Practical, Professional, or Patriarchal, and the alliteration really caught the eye of the publisher. So it did really well at university. It won the dissertation prize, and then they said, this is good enough to publish. And I was like, hell yes, this is my moment. I had completed it just before my ACL, and then I had basically the year to sort of think about how I wanted to go about publishing it. And I was so close to doing it, but I just had this block, like my voice wouldn't matter. And so I just put it on hold for a bit, focused on my rehab, and then we won the Commonwealth Games, and I was lucky enough to touch the ball in the goal, and I had a microphone and people were listening to me, and I was just like, this is my moment. And so then it was a few months later, I decided that I was going to publish it, and I was going to say a very bold statement, which was, I want to go to the Olympics in shorts, because that had never been done, and you had to, well, A, change the policy, and B, get picked.
So this is fantastic, Tess. So tell us what happened when you did launch it, and the reactions from this moment onwards.
It was really strange, because I knew that some teammates of mine felt the same, but I didn't know how many. And it turned out that half of our team also wanted to wear shorts. And so when I came out with my statement and with all of the media, it was such a relief to have my teammates back me up, but also the media just loved it. It was in New York Times, Guardian. It was so cool. But to link the very practical, you can't wear shorts in hockey and you can't have choice often in school uniform, and link the two so that there was a reason. It wasn't just it's just women being annoying again. It's no, this is a genuine public health issue that is represented at the elite level of hockey and so many other sports where there isn't choice. It was really a moment to just latch onto and carry it through, and it worked, because then the Federation of International Hockey were listening because of this media storm. And so then as a team we wrote to the Federation of International Hockey asking for the change to be made so that you can have choice to wear shorts and skirts in the same team. And it was just simple wording change, and they said yes. And then that summer we ran out in shorts. I mean, to get the actual shorts was crazy. We had to get them tailor-made so that they looked identical to the skirts, and so much behind the scenes. And it got DPD delivered the day before the tournament started. So there's so much behind the scenes that you don't know about.
Yeah.
But we managed to run out and beat Ireland 3-0 in the first game of the Europeans, and I was the first woman to score in shorts, so that was fun.
That's incredible. Actually, talking of the other side, the Ireland team, did they say anything after? Did they feel like they needed their shorts, or was that something that discussions later?
Yeah, it's been interesting because a lot of the other players in international hockey reposted the post that said there's choice, and so clearly they're sort of backing it. And I've spoken to a number of Irish players afterwards who, he said kudos, and it's great to see. And unfortunately, different federations are in different positions. We were very fortunate that England hockey were really progressive in this way, but you think, why is wearing a pair of shorts progressive? It's not.
Yes.
But there is still so much tradition holding on to hockey, and the main fear is not being feminine, to be quite honest. And that it's just so wrapped up in all of the ideology of what hockey means and what it is to be a female athlete, and everybody's on their own journey. So there's an issue with sort of breaking that stereotype, which has been broken in a lot of domestic league hockey in England. So we've seen a huge rise in the number of shorts being worn across all of the leagues, particularly the lower leagues. And I'm flooded with messages from women saying, I've just worn shorts for the first time, thank you so much. Or 12-year-old girls Instagram messaging me saying that they love that they can wear shorts and things like that. But in other countries, they have their own set of norms, and it's difficult. A lot of them have changed their policies, but the actual enactment of that, as you can see, sort of at the top level, has been slower than I had expected.
Right.
But the domestic level of France, Holland and England is proving that there is that need and want, and I would be surprised if it doesn't all turn to shorts eventually. I also really respect the choice that my teammates make, because I had to battle with it for a long time as well, and it is something to go against the norm.
Yes, it is. And that then led to you setting up inclusive sportswear. How did that come about? Tell us about that.
Well, I ended the Euros in my shorts, and I thought, what next? To be honest, because I had just, had a victory very quickly. Well, it seemed quickly, but it had been a long build. And I essentially wanted to make sure that this didn't stop in hockey, and it wasn't just a moment in time. I wanted to create a legacy for it, but also to link back to my dissertation. And there is still a serious barrier that sports kit, is for so many people, not just girls. And so I wanted to create an organisation that was dedicated to lifting this barrier, because sports kit policy, PE kit policy, it just should never be the reason that someone drops out of sport, whether that's a sports bra, whether that's not being able to wear long sleeves, not being able to wear shorts, trousers, etc. It just doesn't matter what you're wearing. And the end of my dissertation, my concluding lines was, we need to create school sports kit policy that enables participation and enjoyment. And those words ended up becoming the first principle of the Inclusive Sportswear Charter. Because I had this vision that if we had a set of 5 principles that sort of summed up what it meant to be inclusive in kit policy, that could potentially go across every level of sport and every sector. So I was quite excited by this opportunity to do something that had never been done before in, it's almost like fair trade, if you like, for sports kit policy. I wanted it to be across schools, clubs, national governing bodies, and I wanted the brands to really buy into it. So over the last 2 years, I've been building inclusive sportswear, and what it is now is a community of people who are advocating for this change, and I want to connect with those individuals across schools and clubs that are able to make the change. So I built a community platform with expert guidance with lots of different partners like the Youth Sport Trust and Access Sport, to provide the tools ready for anybody to go on and advocate for choice in their school or in their club. And so now we have this process of becoming champions, and over the next few years, hopefully you will see your schools and clubs and national governing bodies and brands pledging to the charter and becoming champions. And my ultimate aim is that you no longer need inclusive sportswear because it's just the norm.
Yeah.
What I hope is that the mark of inclusive sportswear becomes a sort of a vote of confidence for that person to be like, okay, I can be myself here because I know that they have these policies that mean I can be myself. I can, wear what I want and feel comfortable. And I think there's so much of self-confidence is wrapped up in body confidence, and that's just fact. And so being able to be confident in yourself is, it's almost a human right, I think.
Yeah.
And like you say, it's sort of what I've tried to do with the charter is make it very apolitical, so it doesn't single out any specific groups.
Yeah.
But the guidance shows you how the charter can be enacted to support those different minority groups and ensure that everybody belongs. And that's the slogan of inclusive sportswear, is everybody belongs. And it's proxy inclusion, because wearing a t-shirt might mean something to you, but it might not mean something to someone else. And the reason shouldn't even matter as long as you are both engaging in sport. And that's what the power of sport was always supposed to be. So I often find it quite amusing that so many brands and national governing bodies and schools are so sort of inspired by the charter, I think, because I just said, well, I just chose some principles that I thought were decent principles to have, and I'd like everybody to abide by them. You should be able to feel comfortable, you should wear a kit that's practical, and you should have choice.
Gosh, I think it's been an absolute momentum for a lot of people just to think, crikey, someone's taken a lead in this. And you're saying it from the heart. So all these words, that means a lot to a lot of people. And so it's fantastic. Tess, what are you actually doing now at the moment? Because if I read somewhere that you're actually doing a master's degree as well now. Is that right? As well as your sporting career? Is that true?
I am. I'm completing my master's at LSE, doing it in political sociology. But yeah, it'd be quite funny. I'll give you one guess what my dissertation is on.
Sportswear.
Yeah.
It's actually the other side. It's a political voice of female athletes.
Right.
Oh,
wow.
And so it's been a really interesting project so far. Almost, it's not an autobiography, but it's amazing to meet other female athletes doing, similar things. And where does their voice come from? And that's something I'm really, really interested in, is the changing landscape of whose voice matters.
Do you think that will have an effect on sporting associations and people listening to athletes? Is that something you're trying to get across?
We have seen athletes become increasingly more vocal politically and for the environment and for mental health. Really big stars that have a huge amount of influence with the public. And I think what's really interesting, especially with the Lionesses, is that what they were able to do after they won, they wrote into the government asking to say that every girl should have access to football.
Yeah.
But because they had won, they had this power to demand that. And I think these moments show that public, I guess, credibility comes from the public, and the public adored the Lionesses. So then their government had no choice other than to do that. I think if Andy Murray came out and said something big, then everybody would listen. I think that's what's really special about sport, is like these people are the people's people almost.
And all of this great work that you are doing has led to you being given an MBE in April this year. Tell us about that. How did that feel when you heard you were getting an MBE?
It was quite surreal because they couldn't find my home address. I had moved. So I got an urgent email at literally 10 p.m. and I thought it was spam, and you had to reply before the end of that day. So I had 2 hours, do you accept or not? So obviously I call my mum, and she's like, who's died, what's happened? and she just starts heckling on the phone, like absolutely cackling, finding it so funny.
Oh, brilliant.
Because she was like, your grandmother's going to want to go. and they did. My granny and grandpa and my mum came, and it was wonderful.
I mean, it's been really, really fantastic, really lovely talking to you today. I can't tell you how inspiring it is talking to you and listening to how you're trying to motivate women and girls to participate in sport. Tess Howard, thank you so much indeed. It's been brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Well, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
I think we should actually refer to her, Susie, as Tess the Machine Howard.
Yeah. Shouldn't have told you that.
Oh, no, that's good. There's no going back now, Tess, let me tell you. But thank you so much indeed.
Thanks, Tess.
That's all we have time for today on Women Making Waves. Our thanks go to our guests, Dr. Lee David and Tess Howard, MBE.
We're always on the lookout to feature women living extraordinary lives. So please do contact us if you know of someone we should be talking to.
And you can contact us via social media on X and Facebook at WomenMW or on Instagram at Women Making Waves.
You can also find us on Cambridge.radio or visit our website womenmakingwaves.co.uk, where you can hear all of our interviews.